morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips, the Halloween edition with your special host, Spooky Quindy, her undead minions, Justin and John, and yours truly, who just did not have time to put on any costume materials this morning. No, just, it's Monday, guys. Halloween Monday, like, I think by the day of the week it shrinks, like, but Monday is the lowest % chance that I will have time to do anything Halloween-y, like, regarding my own, like, you know, appearance. So, sorry, it's just me. Quindy is far spookier than me anyway. Extra spooky you. Yes, happy Halloween, everybody. We have the dangerous giant bowl of candy on our counter already prepped. Because of course, when you're an adult, you don't just get candy for kids. You buy a giant bag of little mini chocolate bars, and then you proceed to set aside the ones that you're going to keep, because screw those kids. Yes, plus caffeine. So yeah, David was right away. He was like, I want to keep 2 peanut butter cups and a Snickers bar, maybe 2 Snickers bars, and yeah, it was funny. It was really amusing. He actually set aside more candy than I did. I was being restrained. But then again, I knew that I was going to make chocolate chip cookies yesterday, so I was like, Halloween candy next to homemade chocolate chip cookies? But yes. Dear me. But yeah, we have a mouse today. Mouse is going to get higher highlights on his fur today, and I'm still mucking around with metallics. Maybe on stream, I'm going to go and get my golden liquid metallics, and actually I'll do a side-by-side with Reaper, I think, maybe. Oh, wow, my energy drink and coffee. Yeah, you should make cookies. Hold on, let me go and get something. I want to play with some stuff. And I need my metallics. My metallics are in this box, because I don't have them out very much. But it's metallic season for ends. So, let's see. Shouldn't be hard to find them. Unless, of course, I can't find them. Oh, come on. Come on, paint. Where's my big box? My big bag of, like, metallics and things? Seriously? I just get very, at times like this. At times like this, I'm just like, well, where the heck did I put that crap? And then I'm like, well, maybe I just won't have it. I thought I had it. Oh, there we go. I found it. I'm like, it's a giant bag of metallic paint that I hardly ever, like, reference. Yeah, it's a good Redwall model. It's a very good Redwall model. Let's see here. Where's my Reaper? Reaper. Where's my silvers? Let's grab... Blade steel. Let's see here. Looking for paint. Yeah. I have some interesting paint. Oh yeah, I do have a couple of the Pro Acryls. Interesting. Well, let's see. I had forgotten that I had gotten a couple of Pro Acryl paints. Interesting. All right. I do not need Sophie Silver. My most hated color, possibly. Yeah. Zorl, I just don't. Today, it's Monday. I have so much to do today that it's not going to be costume day for Anne. Sorry. And even though I love Halloween, like, I thought about it this morning, but yeah, right. I did think about it because I do normally like, let's get True Silver out too. I do normally really enjoy Halloween, but yeah. I was not going to get up an extra half an hour this morning. Sorry, guys. To do any Halloween stuff. And the puppy would probably have eaten me anyway, because she would have been like, who are you? You're not my mom. Mom, 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 mom. You know, because puppy. But yeah, pretty much. So unfortunately today I am like the friend I always used to make fun of, who would come to Halloween parties dressed as himself. Yes, today I am that person. Sadly, very sadly. There we go, much better. Alrighty. Hey, Crowley Hamster. Yeah, 35, you and Quindy. Goth chick that woke up late but is spooky every day anyway, so whatevs. Yeah, yep. Yeah. Alright, so I've got some Reaper Metallic. And I want to put this head-to-head. Actually, I don't think I've got the Pro Aquil Silver. I do have a bronze, but that's not going to be good enough. We'll see. Like, I'm willing to bet you guys that all these things are mica-based metallics, right? Did I put some? Yeah, I think I did put... Yeah. Okay, so, and another thing is you always want to put agitators in bottles of paint that aren't Reaper. Just saying. You wore your spiderweb leggings. Yeah, I could go get my goth club outfit. Like, I could have gothed. But that, again, that would have taken an extra half hour. I would have had to, like, dig out a corset, and then I would be streaming in a corset, and that would be weird. That'd be weird these days. And I could have. But I feel like I'm much more distinguished in this stream, and I'm not really, like, you know, gothing out would be weird. All right, so I want to just do a comparison here with flakes. And I like to start, if I'm going to start with a silver, a metallic. Remember, I started accidentally doing NMM last time, and then I was like, oh no, somebody reminded me I wanted to do metallics with this. Although I've realized that we actually, now that you mention it, now that I mention it, we can't do metallics with this. You know why? Same reason that we couldn't do them on the bronze column. Do you remember that one? The Greek one? Remember how we did a lighting effect? We did a, you know, a glow effect, and then we put metallic on it, and it completely killed it. So I'll do it. I'll like actually put metallic on this just to show you guys, but I am willing to bet that the minute we put metallic on this model, and I totally had forgotten this, right? Because in the heat of stream communication, I often do forget things until I actually do them and go, oh yeah, this is a thing. But yeah, the problem is that our lighting effect is an illusion, but metallic paint is not an illusion. And so by trying to mix illusion with non-illusion on a model, even if they're completely different types of illusions, like trying to, it doesn't just mean you can't use like NMM with TMM. It actually means that it'll kind of kill the effect on the model. Like, part of me thinks maybe I could though, maybe? Part of me is like, maybe there's a way to shade way down with metallics and just bring it up with the light. But at that point, it's like I'm doing NMM with metallic paint. Like, I'm going to have to block out a lot of the metallic. Yeah. Well, I can show you guys what I mean anyway. But yeah. Lol, crows. But yes, hi, Red Links, hi. So yeah, so that would be the reason not to do metal on this. But I'm going to actually try it. Let's just do it on the little belt buckle. The little part there. Let's try it and see what it looks like. Because I do want to actually put some of these paints head to head a little bit. Because I'm willing to bet you that these all, well, these two, the Pro Acryl and the Reaper Master series, I'm pretty sure are very similar flakes. And I have both flakes here with MSP. So I've got our Bones Flake and our Silver Flake, Old Core Flake. And then I've got a Pro Acryl White Gold. So I'm going to look at those. And then I've got the golden, which is supposed to be a different type of flake. So I'm going to just put all these together and see what I can see, and we'll talk about metallics. Because why not? Why not? Even if I think that metallics are going to be wasted on this model or going to be not a good choice for this model. So let's look at the Reaper Blade Steel, which is Bones, which is a different flake technology from the core. And of course, it's, you know, being a metallic, it wants me to pokey tool it. And get a decent sized puddle. There. And then we will get our old technology, which is a mica flake, which is standard for the industry, by the way. Mica being a shiny, translucent stone that can be ground up very fine. So it's also completely non-toxic and inert because it is a stone, it's a rock. So that's why a lot of companies and even your sparkly body washes and stuff like that and lotions, those all use mica because they're totally non-reactive little flakes. They are non-toxic. They are just tiny rocks. So you don't want to eat them because you don't want to eat rocks in general. But, you know, other than that, pretty darn non-toxic. Happy Halloween. Yes, happy Halloween. So these are acting similarly. You can see a little bit that the mica flake is actually looking finer. It appears finer right now than the blade steel. The blade steel is a little more sparkly. It's a little bit, we wanted something, because people were saying our metallics were too dull, so we did want something that was a little more shiny. And so the new flake is a bit more shiny. Now let's put the golden liquid up against these two. The golden liquid gold iridescent is very, very much a mica-based flake. I've not actually used this one. Oh, wait, I forgot. I have to actually open it. So, like many artist paints, when you get a tube of golden, you actually have to take the top off, which is nice. It helps keep the paint a little bit better until you start messing with it. So let's pop this in there. Now this is very shiny. Right away you can see it's got more of a sparkly appearance. This is supposed to be like a stainless steel type flake, I believe. It definitely looks different. Like it looks more similar to this one than to this one. Definitely not a mica here, I would say. It's quite shiny. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, and then let's pop the Pro Acryl. Now I don't have a silver Pro Acryl yet. I just ordered one. But let's just put these all down. So far, though, the mica flake's definitely the smoothest. But it may not be the highest coverage for if that's what you want also. Make sure that I've... So we're just going to put this down, even though it's not a silver flake. Do I have to bust this one open? Hold on. I thought I had opened it. Yeah, I did. But it may actually have clogged. Now, the problem with these bottles... Yeah, is when you get a clog. Let me see. I'm going to try one more time and open it up to its widest aperture. Yeah, it is definitely not a happy paint. It is very hard to unclog these suckers. Pretty much have to come in and clear it out. Yeah, it's definitely clogged. It's got a whole bunch of goop in there. It's not as, that's the problem with these bottles. They're not as, they don't have the double cap that we do. So we end up with a glob of stuff that we're just going to wipe off on our paper towel, flake, and also probably means they're using a thicker base, a heavier bodied base. And I'm going to try and take out as much of this as I can because I don't want these little particles in my paint. This is the issue. And I'm using my pokey tool to do this because it is actually a good tool for this. I'm going to get out as much of this as I can. Globs, people. We got globs. And eventually, I will actually have cleared out all of the paint boogers. There's a lot of it, too. So, yeah, essentially what this type of top, this twisting type of top does is unfortunately, it doesn't give you as good a seal. So it is definitely going to lead to more paint drying out if you don't use the paint frequently. If you go through a bottle of this stuff fast, then you should be fine. But yeah, like this bottle's a couple of years old. I've used it. I've brought it out and played with it a couple times. Yeah. Yeah. Thematic gory paint goop. So now let's see if it'll actually come out for us. Come on, paint. You can do it. Yay! So I'm looking at a few things here. I'm looking at how fluid the base is, how the flake actually looks when I compare. This one is actually looking a lot closer to MSP. Let's do a little bit of an experiment here. Do I have something dark? I need something dark. I don't know that I have something dark primed, but I could paint something dark probably quick. Oh, I have a black base. Never mind. Many black bases, in fact. Although maybe, yeah. All right. Yeah, so I got this color. The reason I bought these at all was that I wanted, I'm just going to paint over one of my nice black bases because I can almost just, so we'll do a quartered paint scheme here. Now, over black is when these should be at their shiniest and their best, by the way, and their coverage should also improve over black if they're a mica-based flake or a translucent flake at all. Otherwise, we'll see. We'll see, right? All right, so let's play. Grab my Reaper brush, grab my glasses, and let's see what their consistency is like. So, MSP bones. If I draw a brush through it, it's fairly thick. You can see it's got some body to it. Does not self-level right away. It takes a while to pull back together. You can still see the little divot in there. Same, of course, with these. They do use the same base. Shows you that the body of the flake is actually very similar as far as, they may not be the same amount of flake though. Different flakes, usually you're adding them by weight. So different flakes by weight will be a different dispersion throughout. So if you're testing for viscosity as a paint line designer, you're going to add different amounts of flake if maybe one flake's a little finer, maybe you need to add a little more to get the viscosity you want and the coverage you want. This one, much more fluid. Watch how it goes right back together. This is the high flow, golden high flow acrylics. It slides back together. You can see that it is sparkly. I can tell you just looking at how it's reflecting the light, this is the most bright of any of them at this point. And then we've got the Pro Acryl White Gold, also much more fluid than MSP. This is interesting. I'm going to be interested to see what the coverage is like. Now this one I know has got to have some pigment in it. It's using a silver, in my opinion, it's using a white or silver flake, and it's got a little bit of like gold pigment, yellowish and brown pigment added to it. It's usually how you do metallics. You start with a base flake and then you add color. So let's try Reaper's Bones Metallic. And I'm going to put a bunch of that over here. And this is straight up, not thinned, over black. I'm going to do a little cutout of this, and then we're going to do a cutout of each of them, and we're going to look at them. So this is blade steel. Blade steel does have some white and black pigment in it. As I mentioned, when you are making metallics, the flake is kind of your base color. Then you add pigment to modify that. So gold paints are usually, gold, bronze, or brass flakes are often made with the same flake, depending. Sometimes a bronze flake will be a little bit different. Sometimes they will use a colder gold for a brass flake. So no thinning, so if you use a larger brush, you'll get fewer brush strokes. So that's blade steel. Now we're going to go with True Silver. Now this one is not going to cover as well, because it's closer to pure flake. Usually the brighter you get, the lighter you get. You do put some white pigment in there, but you can't put too much white pigment in for a light flake, because if you do, you kill the shine. So you kind of have to watch that. So here I do have some white pigment. It actually does have decent coverage. Again, over black though is when these micas are really good over black. So if you're having problems with coverage with Reaper MSP metallics, paint it over a dark color. It really makes a big difference. Okay, and as you can see, again, a single layer. You can see now that the blade steel is a more brownish, more dirty metallic, whereas the true silver is a little bit purer, more neutral. And you can see the difference in the flake, right? So you'd use these for probably different things, depending. Although I'll tell you, the Bones Metallics have an advantage that is not showing up right now. But we'll get to that when we start thinning them. Okay, so golden, high flow. Okay, so right away, probably not a mica flake. Look at how little coverage we're getting. But the other reason that you're not getting as much coverage with this is that, as far as I can tell, these golden high flow, at least the base colors, the silver, the gold, the copper, and the pearl, are all just metal mediums. So there is zero pigment to help with coverage in this paint. So when you consider it from that direction, it's a little more impressive. Because it's very fluid, because its base is very fluid, you do get brush strokes. But because it's also very fluid and very thin, you probably won't get a lot of texture if you put 2 coats on. And we'll see how shiny it ends up being. So yeah, but the lack of pigment actually gives you less advantage as far as coverage goes. And as it dries, you can see actually that this looks now like it has better coverage than that does. So, got to judge it when it's dry. And then we've got the Pro Acro, which does have pigment in it. So yeah, and this has got great coverage, like straight out. You can see it. Only a little streakiness. Where this will fail you, I'm betting, is when you thin it. Or use it on a wet palette. I bet it's going to fall out of solution a little faster. Because it's got a thicker base, I can tell right off the bat, and that's something you can do to give your metallics better coverage. We chose not to because we wanted a shinier finish. Now this is leaving brush strokes, absolutely, when it's unthinned. It's leaving a fair amount of texture straight out of the bottle. All right. Meaning, would it get better? Tell me what you mean by that, Kodiak. Do you mean underpainting with a darker color? Or do you mean adding a color to this flake? If you mean, does the metal medium, is it easier to darken it by adding a darker color? Yes, absolutely. Because here you're starting with exactly the same thing I start with in the paint lab. So you're starting with a base with flake in it. There's no pigment at all. Which means you, as the painter, can create your own metallic colors with these. So that's the golden high flow acrylics. They're quite thin. They could probably be airbrushed. I'm not sure. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure they could. As with all metallics, though, I'm sure they also kind of screw up your airbrush if you don't clean well. So please don't shout, Gibson. We're doing very serious work here. But so yes, this being, when I say it's a metal medium, it really is just flake and base. Same with the gold here. You can kind of see it. You can see it with the swatch they put over it. There's just no pigment there. It's either flake or it's not flake. So yeah, looking at this. So I'm letting these two dry. But this is probably a pretty comprehensive idea of the metallics you're going to run with, find in... And of course, if you tilt it away, you can still see. Now this is where, when you tilt away, you can really see where the pigment is. You can see that this color really disappears, except for where the pigment is really puddled here, or where the flake is really puddled here. So there's no pigment in here. It's just flake. So that's what you get. But then here, you're almost certainly dealing with white. Look at how light that is when you take the shine away. And you definitely are dealing with white up here, added to the blade steel. In fact, there's both white and black because it's a darker silver metallic. Golden, yeah. So essentially, if it's not just straight copper and not just straight gold and not just straight silver, what that tells you, Shadow Raven, is that those colors have pigment in them. Because golden copper, that implies there's pigment added to it. It's not just straight copper. I've got their straight copper flake, and it is just flake, just like these other two. So two ways to add coverage to any paint, guys. Two ways. One, your choice of base is going to, the resins in your base are going to maybe add a little coverage. If it's thicker, for example, like this is more of a latex vinyl base. I can tell you that right out the gate, just watching how it was thicker in the palette. It's covering really well. It's not as thin as this one. It's about the consistency of MSP. But MSP is definitely a higher acrylic base. But yeah, that you can add that, or you can add pigment. And pigment is the easiest way, because bases can only do so much for you. Your resin is only going to do so much for you with coverage. Hey, Valandar. Thanks for the raid. So yeah, so if golden copper and with brass, I just mentioned, most brasses are made, not all, are made with a gold flake, but pigment has been added to cool them down. So you're essentially dealing with a better coverage paint because it has more stuff in it, right? More pigment. Both white and black mixed together are going to give you a pretty good good coverage. So I mean, both of these paints have the coverage from both of these mica flakes is entirely from the added white and black, and this one even a little bit more white because this is the true silver. But even then, you can see that it definitely has points where it's not. But when the light's hitting it, it's great. And this is why, I mean, if I want a really solid layer and I don't have a great coverage metallic, I'm going to have to put on more than one coat if I want a solid layer. That's what I was doing with my Anubis that I was painting over the weekend on my own stream. But all things considered, what I've finally gotten here, let's look at them. Look at how shiny that Liquitex one is, though. See how the rest of these kind of gleam, but you've got really a shine on this one? So that's like the straight up flake. Now, whenever you add pigment, you are going to lose some shine, but the flake is just very different here. It is a little sparkly. It's not as smooth as the mica, for sure. This is a mica flake, I'd say. The Pro Acryl is using a mica flake and pigment to help with coverage. And then the Bones flake is probably the second shiniest when I'm just looking at reflectivity of the flake. But again, it's got more, less smooth, less solid. So depending on if you want a more sparkly or bright metallic, or whether you want a more smooth metallic that you can do effects over, that's like kind of your choices here. Like that's what you're looking at here. Yeah, this is golden, not Liquitex actually. Sorry, if I said Liquitex, I was incorrect. That's golden. So, yeah. It has a very bright shine. But it doesn't have any good coverage. So one thing that this would be good for is, for example, because remember, coverage and translucency are just features. They're not good or bad. So when you've done a dirty breastplate or something, like with Mr. Grumpy here, what this transparent one would be good for, transparent but bright, would be in bringing up these highlights here on the upper part, where you do want a more translucent paint. You don't want brush strokes, right? You want it to kind of be able to stipple it and blend it in. So that paint would be very good for that because it's very bright, but it doesn't have the coverage you need for these little micro scratches and stuff that Mr. Grumpy has on. So these little divots and stuff that I've done, it doesn't have the coverage for that. But it has the translucency for layering up. Now let's add water and see what happens. And all of this kind of thing is something I would do in the course of what my old job as Reaper's paint line designer. I was always putting things head to head, analyzing, looking at how they worked. This does have some flow improver added, this water, so it will change our result a bit. 1 drop to about 4 drops of paint. that's the bones. This is the true silver. 1 to 4, sorry, 4 to 1 should actually be an okay level for thinning the metallics as far as keeping them in solution. You can also thin metallics with mediums, of course. So let's see how this works. I'm very interested to see how that works. It's holding together pretty well. And what I'm looking for here is there any fallout of solution? How does the paint hold together when thinned? Yeah, the Pro Acryl, I can see why you like it, why people like it. It's real smooth, it's real fine. This is a paint that I might be able to do the micro abrasions with, like I was talking, the little tiny scratches and fine lines, because it is higher coverage. Actually, I'm going to take out my old GW and put it head to head. How about that? Let's do some crazy stuff. Oh, and I'll put out my Vallejo Model Air Chrome too. Let's look at that. Let's have some fun. Ha-ha. This is my archaic bottle. So this is the one that I tend to use all the time. Let's see. We'll just put it again, just right over a base. I'll do half. You can look at the coverage on this sucker. Nice even tone. And I've periodically thinned this so it's not like super thick because it's old, by the way. Add water. This is the color that I tend to use to base coat. Look at how solid that is. This is why I have 4 of these Gibson, and they are like guarded with my life because look at that coverage. That's why, right there. And then let's throw some Vallejo Model Air Chrome in there. I had access when I was trying to match some of those old GW colors. We got a couple of lots of old pots off of, I think, eBay. And many of them were almost dead, but the silvers were good, and yeah. Hey, Nomedsy. And I need, where is my, do I not have my knife in here? Of course I don't have my knife in here. All right, so let's go over here and do some model chrome. So this is Vallejo's Air Color. I'm just going to put all this stuff together just for fun. Boop. Also, for an airbrush paint, ridiculous coverage. Very thin. Self-levels, doesn't leave brush marks. Neither did the GW, by the way. But the problem with the Model Air Vallejo is that when I go to do all these cool washes and color treatments over it, it doesn't work very well. It tends to repel. It doesn't allow me to do the really thin stuff that I'd like. Oops, I'm dropping stuff. Oh well. Yeah, okay, so the key, if you ever find one of those and you want to keep it good, is to store it on its top. Turn it over and store it on its cap. That essentially seals this seal right here. It keeps air from leaking in around these edges because you've essentially put fluid, you've used fluid to block the air seal there. That's one way. Another way is to add water, but obviously for those of you who have paints that are dead, but if you have pop paints at all. Okay, so this is what we've got. So you can see the difference here. And the Pro Acryl is, and this is actually going to be very interesting here. Because I'm looking at general finish as well as I'm kind of tilting these. And I can tell you that as far as the finish goes, Pro Acryl is the dullest. And that reaffirms to me that it is using a base that is higher large resin. So essentially, for part of its coverage, it's relying on a base. And that base is gives it a little bit more of a thicker profile. And it also gives it a duller finish because it's not acrylic. Whereas the MSP are a little bit shinier, and this one is very shiny. So I'd have to say the golden super fine here is a high acrylic base or equivalent. These pots are much more than that, because that was the line that I was using when I was working with GW 20 years ago. Yes. So, but to keep them good has been, as I say, every few years I add a significant amount of water. I've added flow improver to them. I baby them, and I store them correctly upside down. So all that means that they've stayed good, but it takes work. You can keep any paint good as long as you work at it. The exception is paint pots with twist off lids. So like the old Partha paints, if you use those a lot, the problem is that dried paint, just like we were clearing out of this bottle with the Pro Acryl, dried paint essentially globs around the top, and then it dries, and then you get flakes of it that go into your paint and make your paint gritty. So eventually any twist off paint pot is going to die. You should just switch it to a different bottle. That's not going to have a liability. Yeah. Yeah, as long as you take an effort, make an effort to store them correctly and add a little water every once in a while, just like I tell you guys, and shake them. You got to shake them. So now look at what we've got, and guess what? This confirms my bias. Look how out of solution the Pro Acryl has dropped. Everybody else is a little bit out of solution here and there, but this has seriously suffered. Why? It's the base. The same reason you have a duller finish on this Pro Acryl is the same reason that it's falling out of solution. It's the absolute same thing, and it's a base with a heavier resin used for coverage. Same thing. So yeah, we have to bring this back. We have to mix it up. Took a while for it to fall out of coverage, and that's because I only added 1 drop of water, but everybody else at 4:1 is holding up pretty well. So let's drop another drop of water in. Yeah, so yeah, for me, I am happy that I ordered the Pure Flakes because that lets me really play with it and see what I can do with it. Also at this consistency, by the way, if you're doing metallics and you need a second coat, but you're worried about texture buildup because of flake and stuff, I would use a 4:1 then for your second, and go make sure your brush stroke is in the opposite direction. So if you use mostly a vertical stroke for one side, go in the opposite direction with your second layer. So I tend to go top to bottom if I'm just painting something like this. So if I see a direction to my brush stroke, essentially I'm saying go in the opposite direction. Sounds like it's very similar to the, okay, so that's going to be just like this. It's just going to be like the airbrush, like the ones, it's going to be like, where'd I put my chrome? Chrome, where'd I put you? Did I put you back? I did. It's good. Vallejo, just so you know, Dogfather, Vallejo uses like 2 bases for their entire line. They've stated as such, they're very proud of it. So what you have as far as the Vallejo metal color line, guess what? It's pretty much like these. And this is also their air. And that is this. So right over here. So you can see. Now this is also, by the way, the type of base that this is built in. So when you thin it, it won't necessarily, if you thin with water, there'll be a point. But this is probably a little better because I'm able to, this is also a different flake I'm willing to bet, because it's also, it holds up in coverage even when thinned slightly. All right, but, so yeah, so even one drop of water, though, severely impacts, I mean, it ridiculously impacts something like this pure metal, pure flake one. Let's see how it impacted our other ones. I left a little bit of black in here. So let's see here. This is our bones with a drop of water. The bones with a drop of water, you can see how it's affected the coverage, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible. And I would expect that from this flake, and I'll explain why in a second. And then the traditional MSP flake. Again, not bad, not bad. It still impacts it pretty, you can see it. You can see how it impacted it there. So this one's holding up a little bit better than that one is. And again, I would expect that, given what the flake is. But let's go over here. This should hold up pretty well as long as it's mixed in and it hasn't fallen out of solution, but oh, maybe not. Yeah, okay. Oh, wow, it's breaking up. Look how it beaded. See that? Yeah, okay, so that's interesting. The paint is beading up on a surface that otherwise it's stuck to. I'm going to leave that. I'm not going to fix it. I could probably go over it again and again and try to... Remember, this is the same amount of water added to each of these paints. And the Pro Acryl does not like water. So what that says to me is don't thin it with water. And over here the metal medium completely loses it. One drop of water impacts its coverage by more than half. Yep. Interesting, Valandar. Yeah, I mean, different flakes are just like different pigments. Like it gives you an exciting opportunity to work with stuff. I mean, I would bet though, I don't know though, as far as the Model Air here, I would almost bet that this is aluminum flake because of the way that it acts. Like, this isn't mica. So I wonder, and keep in mind that companies they won't lie to you, but they'll omit information. And they may not even know. Some of them may not even know. So like, to sell that line, they may tell you that, and they may omit to say, oh, by the way, this is also used with aluminum flake, you know, or this color also uses aluminum flake. Yeah. But I'm telling you, this isn't mica. Because you can really tell the difference. Yeah, so in my opinion, that's what they're doing, Valandar, is they found that aluminum flake works better, and so they're using it in all their silver metallics, which explains why they're getting this coverage. So yeah, the metal color lakes are much finer. Interesting, because this is pretty fine. I'll have to look that up. Let me see. So what are we talking about? Vallejo metal color? There we go. Yeah, I see. Oh, well, wait, this is, this, oh, but these are these not water-based? Are these the ones that are they, yeah, they're acrylic, but, okay, so they're water-based, right? Because remember, no solvents for the Anne. All right, so one thing I like, oh, and one thing I wanted to talk about. So although it is a bit more sparkly, you can see this is the Bones flake. You can see it's shinier. It picks up more light. It's also a finer flake, even though it appears sparkly. And the other thing it does is it's much more thinnable. Okay. Sorry, Valendar. Were these? Let me see. It should say water-based, right? Vallejo metal color. Panels on aircraft, non-flammable and does not contain solvents, but it doesn't say water-based. So is this one of those weird acrylics where it smells funny? Although it says non-flammable, so maybe it's good. Maybe it's just water-based. Dropping another drop of water into everybody for fun and profit. Not really, but anyway. One thing I did want to say one thing about these non-sparkly, non-shiny, like the basic Reaper metallic and the Pro Acryl. These duller, finer, smoother guys are really good for base coating metallics when you want to do applications over the top of them. Because you don't want a lot of interference, and you don't necessarily need a lot of shine right off the bat. You want to build that up. But yeah, I'll take a look at them, Valendar. I'll see where I can get them. Looks like just looking to see if I can get where I can get them and get them like not shipped from Europe in the winter. But anyway, so yeah, so when you're starting with a base of metallic, the Core Reaper and the Pro Acryl, I would say, would be good starters because you want something that's pretty smooth. I mean, these have higher coverage. I can tell you that this one does not take fluids as well. I think it's the airbrush. I don't know if it's the airbrush thing or what, but the Vallejo model air does not take water and glazes as well as the old GW. You've always cleaned up in water? Okay. Yeah, sounds like water-based then. I wonder why they just don't say water-based. That's so weird to me. Whenever I see an omission, maybe it's my suspicious brain, guys, but there's usually a reason for that. And then I'm like, why are they just calling it water-based and saying non-flammable and non... That tells me there's something else going on. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I'll go look for him. But yeah, I'm very persnickety about what I want in my metallics, as you can tell from just watching me break these down. Like, and what it's going to come down to, guys, is each of these are good for specific things. And so it never hurts to have multiple metallics in your arsenal. All right, so now we're up to 2 drops of water. We're at a 2-to-1 ratio. Bones and Core and Golden and Pro Acryl. Yeah, that's the flake. That's why I'm saying that that's got to be what they're using in their model airline as well, because you can't like this. Yeah, you just don't with mica or silica or any of the truly non-toxic. I do want to say that if it is an actual metal flake like aluminum, it is, and I mentioned this the other day, it is exceedingly important if you are a brush licker to like pay attention to yourself and not brush lick. You really don't want to ingest this stuff. Really, really, really. Okay? Just so you know, I'm dead serious here. Real metal flakes should be used very cautiously, and if you're a brush licker, don't lick your brush. Like, be very conscious when you're doing it. So, because yeah, you don't need to be ingesting like metals into your body. It's not good for you. Okay, water-based, okay. Yeah, I'll get probably 1 bottle just to play with and see what I feel. See what I feel. Oh, question for you then. If I'm going to get just 1 bottle, is the silver brighter or the aluminum, or are they very similar? I like to play. I like to play. I do. All right, so kind of waiting. Now we're seeing more fallout from the, we're seeing fallout of solution right away here. We're seeing the core MSP is starting to fall out of solution here. We're seeing the metal medium from Golden with the iridescent silver. This is still staying in solution. And we're seeing that the Bones metallic is still staying in solution. Brightest is the chrome. All right. Okay, yeah, that's why I use this sucker, because chrome. I will see if I can find a bottle of that. Thank you, Valandar, for your input. All right, so yeah, so the reason these are falling out of solution is going to be mica flake. It's going to be the base. Obviously, this base is falling apart even faster than this one. We're still in a high acrylic base here. It's also going to be the weight of the flake. Mica's still a rock. Mica does tend to like not stay in solution when you overthin. So if you see your metallic paints thinning, separating out on your wet palette, that's what's happening. You can work with a drier sponge to try to counteract that, or a different paper. This is a different flake entirely, so I don't know what it's. Obviously, one of its things is it's going to stay in solution. It may also be partially the base here. And the bone stays in solution because the silica flake is finer and lighter than the mica. So this means that you can actually, this is not thin enough probably, but with this paint, I have found that I can actually layer. Like I can get to a point where I can do my layering brush stroke and build up pretty seamlessly. I need to thin it a bit more. But with metallics that you can thin to this extent that do not have great coverage, it is possible to layer them. It is possible to get a blending brush stroke. Whereas with high coverage metallics like this, you're never going to get a seamless blend. You're going to have to start with this and work down. And when you bring up your color, you may have to bring it up with a different flake that has more translucency if you want a seamless effect, or you want to airbrush it maybe. Airbrush it. That's why a lot of people airbrush these, is you're never going to get a blend if you don't. But if you're using these higher coverage flakes on a 28 millimeter model, that's not. Aluminum is brighter than silver. Interesting. Thanks, Dogfather. Yes, today I decided I wanted to do a super, super informative thing on metallics. Why not? Okay, cool. Aluminum is brighter than silver, and the white aluminum is even brighter. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so they may be limited on flake that they think will work. A lot of, as I mentioned, Valandar, a lot of bronze flakes are mixed with gold flake anyway, so maybe they just felt that it wouldn't offer anything. I don't know. That's interesting, though. All right, so let me see if I can thin this to the point. One of the reasons I really liked this flake for bones is that I actually was able to layer with it. I was able to thin it to the point. And you can't do that with any other metallic that I've found. But with me, I was interested just because, we've always struggled with having a metallic that was layerable. Needed a little thinner. And I'm not even working with this over a primed or a surface. I'm working with it over something very thin. So you always get that hard edge, right? But also notice, I just added a whole nother drop of water to this bones metallic, and it's still not separating. This tells you that this is a fine, thin flake. It's going to stay in suspension. It's not separating. So, as opposed to its brother over here with the mica flake, these are in exactly the same base. So it's entirely the flake that is giving you a better suspension property here. I'm curious. I'm going to throw some water into this medium and see if I can layer with it, because it is very thin and fine. But yeah, so don't knock translucency, guys. Like if you're not a big airbrusher, if you're a big brush person like me, or you're working on something so small that it really isn't airbrushable, and you want to get a good blend in your metallics and you want to use your traditional techniques, you might want one of these thinner flakes. This is getting there. So I put some of the metal medium down. It's very translucent. A part of that is even the base. It's not even the flake. Interesting. Yeah, so I would just muck with this stuff. Like, and then just build it up and build it up and build it up. So yeah, especially if I put down a slight satin coat first, I can layer with this this golden. I can build up layers. So I can tell that right now. So so the mica flakes are ones that you can't layer with. But the mica flakes are going to give you a little bit more of a flat finish in the beginning, which I find is better for putting colors over the top of if you're going to actually like shade with traditional paint. I find it looks a little bit better than the sparkly ones on that case. But these sparkly ones, they can be used for highlighting after you've shaded it down. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying use different metallics for different things. This is really where like the core of Master Series and my whole philosophy of painting really comes out, because I believe that is true, as you guys know, with any paint color, right? Because I'm always telling you how translucency is valuable for some things, right? And for traditional paint, we understand that. We know that washes, you know, when they're more translucent, work better. We know that glazes are supposed to be really translucent. We know that our paint, when it has a translucency to it, it's easier to build layers with, right? Easier to get to a layering paint consistency. But we don't think about that with metallics, but we can. Like it's just another kind of paint. It's just another kind of pigment. It's just different because it's shiny. So there are things I would say I would think each of these would be good for. Although based on this, I'm thinking that Games Workshop's old metals were probably made with an aluminum flake or a stainless steel, which is why it's different. But yeah, either of these real thin, sparkly ones I could layer with. I could bring up layers very traditionally. Might have to use a tiny bit of glazing, but overall I think I could. And that can be useful when you're working on something small that you want to get a blend and you don't have room to airbrush. So, or when you're working on fine filigree stuff, if you've decided to use metallics, but you want to be able to highlight, you know, to blend a piece of armor or something, then you can use these thinner paints. So, yeah. Anyway, yay metallics! Now I'm going to put some metallics on this Mousling and totally ruin it. Just kidding. So based on this, based on all of my experimentation, I am going to say that probably I want my True Silver base because I want it to be shiny, but a little bit, I don't want it actually super shiny. I just want it light. I could put some gloss sealer in it also to make it appear a little shinier. We were making jokes about the blackest black yesterday. There's a dude who put out the blackest black, quote unquote, and it's just a dead matte black. It's really not. Like, it looks blackest black because it's so dead matte that if you try to photograph it, it's like a black hole on your picture. Because there's absolutely no light reflection. So your camera won't pick it up. It's a what I would call a special effects paint, and I would never ever use it. Because dead matte is actually not something you want in miniature painting, in my opinion. Oh, pure black. Okay, so Valenda, here's the difference. Yeah, the blackest one is pure black. Pure black, go figure. The solid black is an artist black. It has blue and brown pigments added to it to complexify the color. Complexify. That's totally a word, dude. Totally a word. All right, I am going to base coat my sword because it's, or I'll base coat the belt buckle. Let's see. Now, I am actually going to put down cloudy gray first, I think. Reaper colors do benefit from a coat of regular old paint before your metallic layer. Complexify. Hey, I always tell David, like, Dr. Seuss made up words. He said it was okay, and so I believe him. If Dr. Seuss could do it, so can I. There's probably different versions of it now. It was such a fad thing that everybody was running to make money off of it. I don't remember what its actual name was. I pretty much, somebody brought a bottle of it to Paint Club. I spent half an hour playing with it and pretty much concluded that its only claim to fame was being a perfect matte. Perfect dead matte. And by perfect dead matte, it's actually, if you overdo the matte medium on a color, it'll frost. So you have to be careful when you're trying to mix something like that if you want the perfect dead matte. Because if you go too far, you will lose it. So I'm getting some regular paint. Yeah, but why would you want that, right? It's a special effects toy. On a miniature, you'd never want it. Maybe you'd want it on a stealth bomber model to make your point. But in my experience, dead matte paint is actually a detriment in miniature painting, which is why that Chimera colors come with a bottle of satin medium. Kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Yes. Anti-shine additive is entirely the thing you would do if you want to make pure black a little more matte, but be careful. So when you're using anti-shine additive, use just a tiny bit. And I mean when you are, like if I was using anti-shine additive, I would actually squeeze a little bit out onto the top of this bottle and just dab a tiny bit onto my brush. So like that, like a tiny bubble, and add that to your well of paint. You just got to be cautious in using it. But yes, anti-shine additive absolutely works, but will frost eventually if you get too much. It's hitting the sweet spot. So we're actually we're pretty mathematical about how much matte we add to each of our paints. We've experimented with the Reaper line to find the right ratio of matting agent to create the finish we want with an MSP. All right, so we've got cloudy gray here. I'm going to put yeah, I guess you could use it for that, Pendrick. I never thought of that, but yeah, you probably could. Since those areas are in shadow anyway, though, they're typically not reflecting the light in any meaningful way, and I've never needed anything more than just like traditional walnut or pure black. But you could, if you had a bottle and you didn't have any other use for it, and you wanted to at least use it to get your money's worth out of it, yeah, that would be a good use for it, is the undersides of things. The interiors. So then, putting the silver over the cloudy gray gives us a good starting silver. That sounds quite questionable. Unless it's just a brand name. Yeah, but they shed undercoat, not their guard hairs usually, Pendrake. I mean, they shed a few guard hairs, sure, but unless they're walking up to the wolf with tweezers. Plus, the hair is usually too long. They'd have to trim it. Usually when people are using dog or wolf hair for something, or dog hair for something, it's to use the undercoat and turn it into yarn to make a sweater. But then when it rains, you smell like wet dog. So I didn't thin my initial coat here. Now, if I would use a shinier paint over the top of this, I could really, really make it pop out. So let's add a coat of our thinned golden high flow. So you can start with a shinier bit. So Reaper on one side. Now you can see how bright that is on the other side. But I'm going to have a trouble trying to make this work with my lighting effect. Like, I'm going to have to bury the silver so dark And then I'm going to have to bring it up with yellow. See, that's the thing with the metallics. The flake is going to want to go white. And you need it not to go white. So you'd almost want to put a glaze of yellow over the top of everything if you were going to use this. Yeah. If there's no transparency, then yeah, you can't trust anybody. Yeah, I'm not even interested. Like, remember that different types of hair have different qualities, and usually, like, over the centuries, artists have figured out which hairs work best for brushes. So I would be dubious about, you know, wolf bristle brushes sound like a gimmick, and who knows what the functionality is on them. But they're not caring about functionality if that's their product. They're not doing it because wolves have magically great hair for painting. They're doing it because people will buy wolf hair. You know, that's my cynical take, my cynical world take on it. Mixing up some darker color here. Ah. Oh, I see. Half the brushes were wolf. Other Klinsky. Weird. It's just weird. It's like such a gimmick. Sigh. I was never much for gimmicks. I just wanted to make a really good product that would hold up to the techniques that mini painters needed to use. All right. So if I was going to do this, probably want to do a blue. Yeah, metallic's going to be really painful on this. I'm going to need to do blue and brown for sure over the top of this. Pretty hard. Let me see, where's my sealer? No, you don't, Pendrake. No, you don't. You'd probably, like, slice a finger off with a monofilament brush. Right. Maestro doesn't beat up on it, right? Because they have weather-repellent coats. Yeah. Oh, my gloss sealer is getting a little bit thick. Probably I want to actually add water to that. One second while I doctor my gloss sealer. Well, and come on, if the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or whatever flipped out at the idea of weasel fur brushes and now you have to go through tons of hoops to import them to the U.S., what are they going to do when they see wolf hair? Like, I can see that ban coming a mile away. Sorry, guys, had to add a little water to my gloss sealer. And if you are building washes to put over a metallic, you do want to use gloss sealer usually, unless you're looking for a less, like more of a flatter metallic. It just depends on how much metal you want still showing through. I'm going to throw a little bit of gloss sealer down and put some blue liner into it. I'll go blue first, brown second. So just adding the sealer. There we go. I get back too close. Blue liner plus sealer really brings the blue out. You can see it. Drop of water. Yeah, I don't know. Not a big gimmicks person myself. Some people think it's fun. That's all right. And how dark you want your your wash to be. This is obviously very lightweight. I'm going to actually darken this up. The gloss helps counteract any matteness that's coming over from the paint that you're mixing into it. Let's try this. So that's a wash in the truest sense of the word, and I'm going to let that set. And I'm going to have to come in and try to darken down a lot of this metal and just leave the side that's close to the flame. I'm probably going to have to bring the silver up again, and then I'm going to have to put a glaze of lantern yellow over it. But, so the problem here is that because we've got all this dark over here, I don't really want any metal shine unless I decide to do that secondary light source. Then I just want a little bit of metal shine. So metallics are directly working against my goal here because they want to be shiny. They want to pick up light. And worse, they're wanting to pick up light from everywhere around you. They're not just, they can't be manipulated like NMM can. So the silver is going to be problematic because if I've got a light source that's coming from this direction, if I'm holding it up to look at it, it's going to shine that way. Unless I bury this metallic under traditional paint. And then why am I even using metallics? Because then I've got just like this tiny little area of metallic that I'm using because I buried everything else. You know, do you guys get what I'm saying? Like, because you really only want the shine from this direction, which means you really have to like dull down everything else or only put the metallic over there. But I'd rather dull down everything to make it look more realistic, right? But yeah, it's fraught with peril. It's fraught with peril, guys. Yeah, Xanafer. Rosemary and Company seem to think so. I don't think it's not illegal, but you have to jump through hoops, I believe, which is why you can still buy brushes from, you know, other companies like Winsor & Newton and Raphael and Da Vinci. So like it's like, yeah. I think it's saw weasel maybe. No one's making brushes out. That's not so good, Vic. Weasels are bloodthirsty little animals. Did you know? Maybe you don't want them making it come back. So I would have to really just paint over a lot of this silver to kind of bury the shine a bit. And even then, it's going to fight me because I can still see the shine. So, but in order to make this look right, I'm going to have to bury this silver completely, except for this edge. Highlight this edge. I'm going to bring up. This is why I'm just doing this on this little part. Dry faster. Dry faster thing. So, a couple extra glazes. Then I'm going to put a little bit of a brighter silver. I don't think they're misunderstood. I mean, weasels are cute and all, but they're also bloodthirsty little beasts. I'm going to try to put a yellow glaze over this just to see what I can do. But I'm still having trouble with reflections down on the bottom there. So yeah, this is the problem with doing metallics on something that you're doing a lighting effect on. You're just going to keep fighting it. Now I need to let it dry. I'm going to grab some of my yellow to see if I can create the light effect on that metallic. So much to do today. So much to do. I'm still trying to get my Patreon stuff done. So that's what most of my day is like totally sucked into. It's while we got ready for trick-or-treaters, got all our stuff bought and set yesterday. Yes, there's my, thank you for the plug, Quindy. There's my Patreon information, my YouTube information. I'm way behind on my Fundamentals of Miniature Painting series for YouTube. It's just been, between the getting sick and the wedding, it ate up several months of my time. I'm going to glaze this yellow over the top of this metallic. So what it comes down to in the end here is that metallics are going to only work on this model if I cover them completely with regular paint. So do you see why maybe we don't want to do metallics on this model? And even then, I'm still getting shine on areas I don't want shine on, like the bottom. So what it comes down to, guys, is you're trying to create an illusion. So essentially, you need to be able to control where the highlights and shadows fall if you're trying to create the illusion of object source lighting. In this case, the object is a torch, and it's casting a light on the Mousling. So when you have NMM, you can control exactly where your highlights are, and no matter how you move the model, or no matter what light source you're under in the room that you're in, those highlights are going to stay in exactly the same place. So you can hold up your illusion, essentially. It's holding up your illusion. But the minute you add metallics to the piece, then you're fighting, and then you're in a war. Because the metallics are going to reflect light from anywhere. They don't care about your object source lighting. They're just like, no. So even when you bury them under regular paint, like I did here, I'm still having problems. Anywhere that I didn't directly paint, like blue liner, and bury the metallic, I'm still having problems with reflections and light, you know, catching the light in areas I don't want it to catch the light in. So that'd be the problem with doing metallics on this model. So, and this will just get worse and worse as I hit, especially when I hit all this stuff over in the shadow here. Because if you can see any light at all on this, it's going to totally blast your illusion to heck, essentially. Where the hell is heck? I know. But it's going to blast your illusion right out of this galaxy. You're not going to be able to uphold that beautiful illusion that we have of the light falling on the mouse. So, oh yes, if you have plenty of food source, then I'm sure your weasels are just fine. But yeah, but this is why, in retrospect, I'm going to say that metallics is a bad idea on this model. And when I was originally thinking of it, I had forgotten that we are creating, it's illusion versus non-illusion. So use metallics on things that you're not trying to create an illusion of anything. Use them for realism, you know. Use them on big pieces where you want to make interesting effects. Use them on that. But don't use it on something where you're also using NMM or you're using a illusion of like light, because the environment is going to beat you up. Yeah, everybody always says undercoat with pink, but really, Kodiak, undercoat with adding white to your orange. I actually mentioned this on my Patreon, but any translucent color that you are using, you can add a bit of white to and get better coverage, and then put the regular color over the top. I do this with Succubus Kiss a lot. No, I don't scoff. Pink, you don't have to use pink. Like, you just have to use a lighter orange. You just have to add white to whatever color you're doing. Pink works because you're adding white to red, and red is, you know, a color used to shade orange, so it tends to work well because a little bit of your red shows through in the cracks. But I mean, if you wanted a realistic shadow on orange, you probably would want to use a light blue, because blue and orange are going to cancel each other out into brown, which is a more naturalistic shadow for orange. So it's all, so do you see the color theory there, Kodiak? Pink is essentially just red and white, and red plus orange is usually a shadow color for orange. So by putting pink down and putting orange over it, your shadows hopefully will go more reddish. If you've used it with yellow, use it with orange. They're very similar. I mean, most oranges are built with a very high level of yellow because orange pigment. lot of people don't even use orange pigment. They just use yellow and red. Because you've got an orange phase yellow, you can build a very nice orange, and that orange phase yellow has slightly better coverage. But yeah, any transparent color. All right. So yes, I do not like you, metallic belt buckle, because you are reflecting light everywhere. So yeah, so do you guys understand kind of the whole thing? Why the environment will... See, look, my highlights just shifted and I had no control over it. Oh no, and the puppy is trying to kill her water. Settle down, Pa. I'm almost done. But I might need to go and rescue the water, because otherwise it will be all over the floor. And also mixing like yellow into the silver doesn't really work. I'd have to use a pearl, obviously, because the silver has black in it, and that's going to go green. 1 second while I rescue the puppy water, and then I'll be right back for another 10 minutes. Nuh-uh. No, ma'am. Not time yet. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You're a good girl. That's good. Yeah, Mom's going to be back in just a second. You're a good girl. You got to be patient. Be patient, Pa. I know. I know. It's very hard for a little puppy. Tiny puppy says, patience is hard. Let's go shopping. All right. All right. Oof. So there we go. So we had a very instructional video today, or session today, on metallic paints in general. So hopefully that's given you guys some ideas, should you choose to use metallics in the future, on how to work with them, and the different types of metallics there are, and they're good for different things. Because you will actually notice that the Master Series core did take that blue wash. It took it very well. So that is one thing. You won't always get that with other flakes and other bases. So that's another thing to pay attention to if you're going to be doing treatments like I do, where you start with a bright metallic and you knock it down and then build it up again. So yeah, there we go. Informative Halloween stream. Woo! Now I have to paint these bases black again. Whee, fun. But yeah, and thanks for the metallics recommendations, everybody, just for me to play around with. I really like to examine them and see what they're all good at, so that when I do work with them, I can be really knowledgeable about it and use the right metallic for the right thing. But yeah, I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys are looking forward to your Halloween. And, oh, tomorrow we're back on regular rotation, so we are out of the spooky zone. Out of the spooky zone, and that means fishing! Yes, happy Halloween, and tomorrow is fish day. Fish day, fish day. We're back to Weeby World. Yes, tomorrow is fish day. So we're back to fish day, and we're working on fish day. We might put some coral color on his vest and cloth, just to see. But yeah, and it's Rhonda later today for her Halloween stream. I'm sure she's going to be far spookier than me, so please do go and tune in to Rhonda. And thanks for coming along, everybody. All right, have a great one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.